Welcome back into the Dedicated Podcast. We've got a special guest joining us tonight. If you're in the 7-on-7 space or the youth football world, you've heard of Coach Tony Ballard, former FAMU Rattler quarterback and the founder of Hustle Inc. and Hustle Inc. 7v7. He's been in the quarterback coaching game since the mid-90s, 1997 to be exact. Started Hustle Inc. 7v7 back in 2015. And if you've been on the 7-on-7 ranks, you've probably came across Hustle Inc. Horde of championships over the years, and even more so, this is the stat that stood out to me, Coach. I saw this on the FBU website, so if it's off, correct me, but this is the biggest thing, and I'm sure something you're very proud of. Since the inception in 2015, Hustle Inc. 7v7 has seen 98% of its student athletes earn scholarships. Wow, that is an incredible stat, and one that I couldn't wait to talk with you about. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So let's go into it a little bit. Not only are you teaching these guys route concepts and how to be a good quarterback, how to be a good DB, but you're also preparing them for life, and that's evident in that stat. So what does that mean to you to kind of be able to give back and help these young men attain their goals of playing in college, but also going to college?
Now you can't be more proud of the young men and families that have trusted their kids to be able to be a part of what it is that you're trying to instill in these young men. But like you said, on and off the field, the biggest thing is obviously is just preparing these kids for life, because as we all know, that football is going to go dead at some point or another. But at the end of the day, did you use that opportunity to kind of set yourself up, you and your family, for 30 years down the line? I'm big on the free education, no student loans, and what kids will never know what that means until basically 2 to 3 to 4 years probably after they've kind of graduated college, what that means, because you kind of start your adult life off debt free. We're big on that. We're a huge component behind that.
Well, Coach, I know we're gonna dive a little bit more into definitely Hustle Inc. Kind of share with me a little bit about your quarterback days down there in Tallahassee. But you're correct me if I'm wrong, you're originally from Florida.
That's correct. I'm originally from Tampa, played my high school ball down there, obviously went to FAMU. My career is nowhere near what most of these kids are going through, or the guys that are, on our coaching staff. So I kind of use that opportunity to get as much knowledge as possible in terms of how the quarterback position is being played, and try to teach that to a high level to kids that are coming into our program, or to kids that I've been a part of, whether it's an FBU camp or things of that nature that I've been a part of over the last 15, 16 years or whatever. I'm big on being able to give that information back to those kids. You can call it training, you can call it whatever, but I just call it teaching. I believe that that's exactly what my background is. I'm a teacher. I want to be able to make sure that I can give each and every one of these kids every opportunity to be able to be successful on the field as well as off the field.
So Coach, you look like you and I played ball about the same time, around 1994.
Correct.
The name of our show is Dedicated Podcast, and I always kind of try to start from where start from me. Look like we definitely grew up in the same age, around the 80s, coming out in the 90s. So I think we look back on our life right now and see who we are and what was that moment in our life that we became dedicated. I know for me, growing up in the 80s, that was around the drug era when things really started to happen in a lot of our neighborhoods. I think the crack came from west to south. That impacted my family, impacted my household. So just dealing with a father that was going through that and having to, that kind of takes people into to different personalities. So therefore I had to step into a different area of the family to protect my mom. So that was kind of in that, that's when I discovered weights and understanding all that stuff translated into football, because you're getting stronger for one reason, but you didn't know where God was really taking you. So that's kind of was my dedicated moment to really become dedicated to athletics and the blessing and all that, even though a lot of people might say it as bad, but the blessing and all that is I was able to get a full ride to SMU. Kind of share with me, I know you're very successful in your career now. Kind of take us through what was that moment as a young Tony that made you dedicated to get to where you are going to Florida A&M, but also I know you've been have a great career in what you do outside of coaching these athletes. Kind of tell us a little bit about that side of Tony from more.
That's fine. Well, obviously growing up, not knowing my father, mother was kind of like a little bit of a drug addict, used to be on binges and things of that nature. I kind of was born and partially raised to about 5 or 6 years old in Newark, New Jersey, before my grandmother obviously took upon herself to take 6 of us with her to Florida. And my grandma took us all in at about 73 years old.
Wow.
And working for the city for 40 plus years and things of that nature, she scraped and borrowed to make sure that her grandkids had the best opportunity it was to present it to, make sure they were productive in society and things of that nature. She wasn't big on sports. She was big on just completing high school, going to college, or going to the military or whatever it may be. But when you're the youngest boy, to the youngest daughter, my sister Tanya, who was a cop in Tampa at Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. It kind of skips over you to get to her in terms of all the things that you want as a young kid. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's Christmas, birthdays, or things of that nature, or whatever. And it skipped me. But, at the end of the day, it kind of taught me some things that kind of where I got to the point of how to name our company, or 707 out the Hustle Inc., because the letters in Hustle, which is HUSTLE, is how you survive through life. And
Wow.
that's kind of what life is about. I think everything that you do in life, I think Chase Banks, I think DR7, I think Adidas, I think any of these companies that are out there big, they're all a hustle. I just was only one man enough to name it what it was. And it's a grind. And I think that having to work for everything is that you got, and coming from that background and finding out that you have 4 or 5 more of the siblings, and one was a stillborn, of how big our family really is. I think that tells you, or that kind of motivates you and push you, that you've got to do what you got to do to survive in this world, or whether people agree with it or not, or whatever. And I chose that road that, obviously after college and things of that nature, like I told you guys earlier, I wasn't the 5 stars, recruits and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, Johnathan, those things didn't happen when we were coming up anyway, because It was all about the recruiting process. Basically, if you want the elite of the elite, was your senior year. Things of that nature, the VHS tape, the coaches coming to see you guys play, and before you coming to see guys play, but they're coming in your senior year. So all this stuff that is out here for all these kids wasn't there back in the late 80s, early 90s, and so forth, or whatever. But at the same token, you got to mentally be strong in this whole entire game. And obviously when I went back home, before I actually moved to Atlanta to coach, obviously I got to a point where I was coaching in youth football or wherever, and I kind of knew I had kind of like a skill set, because I had worked with kids when I was a kid, whether it was in the Boys and Girls Club, it was in the Parks and Recreation. I already knew at that time that's exactly what I was going to do in my life, and that was I was going to be some sort of driving force in a young man's life, because I was already doing that. And as I used to work for the Department of Juvenile Justice. I used to work for a program called ACTS, Agency for Community Treatment, where we dealt with kids that did everything other than murder. So, and they were in a program where it's a 24-month program that they were in. And what our job was is basically kind of give them some sort of structure in their life, rehabilitate them before we can absolutely decide whether or not they can go back into society, or their next step was obviously going to be juvenile prison or whatever. Well, they took that program away from us after 8 years of being in there. And what happened was we got a new head of the Department of Juvenile Justice of Florida, and that individual came from California. In California, all they do is build jails out there. There's no rehabilitation out there. There's jails and prisons or whatever. So they took that program from us. And at that time, I just kind of knew that I wanted to do something differently, and I wanted to come to Atlanta. And I landed myself in Roswell, working for obviously a major company in UPS. And I've been there 20 years or whatever. It's been great. I've used the resources in that organization, obviously in that business, to kind of help with other things, because I work with people's kids who are high up in UPS and things of that nature to help their kids go to college, whether it was a quarterback that went to Harvard some years ago, went to Yale, or whatever it may be. I've used that in terms of grinding to know that and making sure that no kid that ever comes through this program that I'm starting, I will tell you a little bit more about that the grind was real, because at the end of the day, let's think about this, that coming from where I'm coming from, and most of the kids in our organization are coming from, good 2-parent households and things of that nature, suburban kids or whatever it may be. But I gotta make sure I get them to understand that you got to work just as hard as anybody else as well, even including the kids in the city of where I kind of originated from, if that makes sense or whatever. So once we got to that point, obviously I moved to Atlanta, and Robert Edwards, who played at Georgia, playing the lead. I'm not sure if you guys remember who that is. Him. I worked at camp with Robert Edwards. I met him in this flag football thing or whatever. And one day he came to me and said, "Hey, Tony, I need you to do me a favor." I said, "What do you need?" He said, Can you work this camp for me?" It was his camp, but he didn't have anybody to work with quarterbacks. But because we had a relationship or whatever, probably about a good year in or whatever, I decided to go work that camp. And he was like, "Man, that's crazy." He said, "Have you ever thought about doing certain things?" And I was like, "No, not really. I mean, I just did it because you asked me to do it, and it's whatever." So at that point, he told Eric Richards, which was with the FBU, who's the national director, obviously, for that. He told him about me, and he was like, "Listen, I know that this camp is about the NFL players, but I can assure you that this guy right here is, if not better, on the same level with those guys in terms of teaching, because he's real fundamentally sound. He harpers on the small things or whatever that can amount to the big things or what have you." And so I end up working at FBU camp. At that time, they would bring you in for Top Gun. And at that time, it was in Virginia. And in Virginia, the Top Gun is for them to bring you in to give you an opportunity, or give them an opportunity to see if you're on that level in terms of coaching, because they are spirited behind development, teaching, things of that nature, whatever. And obviously I did a really good job at it. And they kind of brought me on throughout the years, and I used to do the camps, and before you know it, now I'm helping develop young men, quarterbacks or whatever, from the Davis Mills to the Gunnar Stocktons to the elite of the elite who've been in our program, Harrison Bailey. The list goes on in terms of all the kids that have come through this program, and I would not have met them probably had not been for FBU, and definitely because of Robert. Robert kind of put me on that, gave me an opportunity to get on that platform, and I'm forever, embedded to him in terms of that, because who would know who we are, or who would know what Tony Ballard is? And at the same token, how did we get to 7-on-7? Well, we got to 7-on-7 where one particular day I get this crazy phone call from some kids in a group chat talking about, we're trying to create a 7-on-7. I did not know who these kids were personally, but I kind of knew them from obviously the high school programs or whatever, because I was always around the high school programs. I did coach at Roswell, I did coach at Pace, I did help out at BT, things of that nature, whatever. So I was kind of around this kind of stuff for quite some time or whatever. And I was like, guys, I'm not a fan of 7-on-7. I was like, y'all can do it. Just, you can do whatever. And before you know it, it was like, well, we can't do it without you. And I was like, why? It was like, well, you got all the quarterbacks. And I was like, well, go talk to the quarterback. But anyway, so one thing led to another. So I end up now meeting Willie Clay, who played in the league, played at Georgia Tech, played at Pittsburgh, very good guy. Stacey Bailey, who played at San Jose State, played with obviously with the Falcons and things of that nature. Ray Buchanan, who played with the Falcons, Big Ray played. So all these guys had these talented kids. And we met up one day, and before you know it, it was like, hey, we're going to do this, right? And I was like, who's gonna run? It was like, you. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. You guys got these enormous backgrounds. Y'all don't need me? And they was like, no, we do. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, whatever. So somehow we formed this team. The team was already created, to be very honest, because guys like Davis Mills, Chad Clay played at Georgia, who's on our coaching staff. And by the way, Chad was the first kid to graduate college that came from the Hustle Link program. So kudos for him. Balin Buchanan, which is Ray's son, Miko Hardiman, Jeffrey Okuda. These were all the kids that have come through this program that were like, when people hear their names and guys that are playing on Sunday, they're like, I mean, you had those kids in your program? Yeah. They were the foundation to this entire thing. And before you know it, we did everything from scratch. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we got into it. And before you know it, our first year, we didn't lose our first game until the Final Four in nationals against Team Tampa. We had routed everybody all year long. And before you, and a good buddy, a good friend of mine's, Woodrow Grady, who runs that program down there. Yeah, Grady. So, and it's a small world, because this kid played for me in youth football in Tampa.
Yeah.
So Josh Grady, who is an NFL agent now. Yes. But to make a long story short, that's how we kind of got into this, and no one to expect where we are today, 11 years later, that this is where we would be, because at the end of the day, we didn't care about anything other than the fact of just getting out here playing. But I kind of ran with it a little bit because of all the quarterbacks that I've had play in our program, in our 707 program, because that was a good way. There's only so much you can do chalk talk. There's only so much you can do on the field in terms of reps with a kid, footwork, fundamentals, things like that. But to absolutely see them really understand how to throw the ball in small windows, work on proper drops, how to anticipate a throw, understand concepts of what it is that they're doing in high school and what it takes to obviously be prepared for the next year. Because I did a lot of going from school to schools, talking to college coaches in terms of what it is they were looking for in a quarterback. And I think that was the advantage of putting guys like Davis Mills, AJ Swan, Ryan Glover, who played at Penn. The list goes on. A kid who's came through this program, that's what gave them that advantages to be able to be prepared as they entered college in their freshman year, or to obtain scholarships of what colleges coaches are looking for. And when that happened, Adidas got behind us years ago, and kudos to Adidas, to Ryan Lacey and Zach Zowski. Those guys thought the world of what we did in our program and invested in us financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritual, all that kind of stuff like that. And to this day, yesterday, obviously, we signed another 3-year deal, obviously, with Adidas, with Matt Hemingway or what have you. So, proud of those guys. Obviously, we've done something right. And then obviously I do the quarterbacks in the combine for the the NBC All-American game or whatever. So that's how we got here.
One thing I want to touch on, Coach, and obviously the success speaks for itself. You mentioned all those guys who have gone on to college as well as the NFL. But not only are you teaching X's and O's, like we touched on this earlier on in the interview, you're teaching life skills and things like that. This is another quote that stood out to me in an article in one of your bios. It's, quote, "All of his Hustle Inc. programs set aside time for these young men to give back to their communities, teaching them to not only appreciate what they have, but that giving back is not just a choice, it's a responsibility." So what all does that kind of entail, and just what does that mean to you as a program to be able to give back to people in need?
Well, because here's how I kind of feed it back to the kids, and I think you'll understand where this goes with that, and that is, so I'm a person, I give to the homeless all the time. I want you to kind of understand where I'm going with this, because I always said to myself, if I was ever in a situation where I was homeless, would somebody help me? That's the reason why I give back to them. So when we talk about what we're dealing with the kids, and I do find myself, I give back more than enough in terms of with the homeless or whatever. But with the kids, we also got to tell those kids, don't forget about who paved this pavement for you. Who laid this for you, who gave you this opportunity. And that's not necessarily the kids that came before you, but it's also mom and dad, you know. It's also that coach who spent hundreds and thousands of hours with you, whether it was in rec ball, middle school, or whatever it is. So I'm not even to the point to even think that it's giving back. I think that's what you're supposed to do. I think that's how you get your blessings. You don't look for anything in return. I think that's your blessing, to give it, and it is what it is. You've done what it is that you're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, here's what I love about some of the kids in our program, that when they do that, they don't stop giving. Because you kind of open their eyes to some things, and not to look down on somebody because they don't have, or because you have, but because you know what? I don't want to do it to think that I need to put this on social media, or I need to get the clicks and the likes. I'm doing it because that's who you are as an individual. That's who you are as a person. I've given more time, energy, money into this 7-on-7, into this. You guys will be amazed at how many kids have called and I don't have a pair of cleats. Coach,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm in college, coach, you know, and this is before the NIL deal. Hey, coach, can you help me with this? Yeah, boom, boom. Hey, coach, hey, true story. Hey, coach, I got no way back home. I'm out somewhere, but can you Uber me back home? Are you doing wrong shit? No, sir. I was just out, just hanging out, whatever in the third, but I don't have any money to get Uber back. Fine, I get it. I'll Uber him back home. That's just me. I mean, I didn't grow up with all of that. We all, I'm sure we didn't.
Yeah.
We all didn't get that. So the give back, man, that's the easy part of this, in my opinion. That's the easy part, and I'm just big on that. So I kind of give that back to the kids, to tell the kids, man, develop this as a man, develop this as a person, that this is who you are and this is what you need to do. Because at the end of the day, man, you ain't gonna have to answer to nobody but one person, and that's the man above. And when you go back to answer him, he could say, you know what, heck of a job, great job. We're building character now, right? Am I correct on that?
Right.
That's what we're big in our program. We get on these kids, we chew them out. I'm telling you like this. I'll be the first one to tell you, if you ask any quarterback that has ever played for me in 7-on-7, they will tell you this man is a complete turd. He will break you down, but he will build you back up and put some love on you. And I've done it to every quarterback that has ever played in our program. Benched them, kind of molded them, shaped them, broke them down, tell them what they did wrong, and now let's figure out what we can do right, and then let's go back and do those things. So the community service, man, that is nothing. There's a lot of things that I want to do in terms of. We tried something a couple of years ago before COVID, where we did the Life After Football Symposium, where we brought in sexual assault therapists, former and current NFL players, NFL agents, to kind of give them that breakdown of what's going on in the world, real life situations, and how a situation with a young lady, you could be sitting here and you and her talking and this third, probably having a little drink, you rubbing on her, you think it's going somewhere else, but she's not thinking of that, and then boom, all of a sudden it turns into sexual assault. You know,
Absolutely.
we're trying to tell kids how to prevent that. You know, we live in a society, in a time now about this marijuana. This thing is legal. We can't prevent kids from doing it, but at the end of the day, you do what you think is best in terms of try to educate them that, you know, at some point or another, this is going to come back to bite you in the ass. You know what I mean? And we try to use that to try to talk to the kids. So we're trying to bring that back this year and get a lot of the 7-on-7 teams involved in this, because if you think about it, when everybody said that they are in the business of helping these kids on and off the field, well, we about to put you to the test on that one. That is this. Here's the deal. If you say that, and you could put a kid on a flight, you can put a kid on a coach bus, you can put a kid in a car and take them to all these 7-on-7 tournaments, then take them to this, so we can, you know, as a whole, meaning that it takes a village, right? It doesn't matter if Johnathan's got a 7-on-7 team or I got a 7-on-7 team. It takes a village to kind of help raise these kids. So let's all take it upon ourselves to kind of help these kids in terms of there's levels to this in life, and the pros and cons and things of that nature, whatever, or what can happen. So that's going to be our focus in 2025, to do that. We'll get our wins and losses. We'll get our love. We'll get this. But at the end of the day, man, I think you get measured on what you do with these kids behind closed doors.
We'll sign up whatever part we have to do to be a part of that, because that's our heart. I was just sitting here, yeah, we grew up in the same era, man. You can kind of tell the thought process 90 to 94, because that's the mission of DR Sports, is to expose the athletes to different opportunities. That don't just mean colleges. Yes, our number one goal is to expose them to college, but let's expose them to different things and how to be leaders, how to be men, and how to really, and I'll use your word, how to hustle in life to be successful. Hustle don't always mean that you got to be out on the street corner hustling. The biggest hustlers is in the Brooks Brothers suits, and those guys that are making millions of dollars. So we have to change the mindset, and it's going to take our community in the 707 community to pull together and to be a part of that. So we'll be more than happy when you want to discuss that, because that's our passion, is how can we got some things we're dropping this year in 2025. We're not to be promoting, but along with what you're talking about, we're in talks with some major financial companies to teach financial literacy, to teach about our communities, about money and how money works. I mean, the biggest thing is a lot of us can be 50 plus years old and don't really understand how wealth works, how money works. So we have to begin to do things on the grassroots, on the foundation levels. And that's what you're talking about. I mean, I actually have a personal story of how that whole drink turns into something different. And, kid I know, I'm not going to get into details, lost his whole life. I mean, pretty much success in life, NFL, college, and NFL. NFL wouldn't touch him, even though he's 220, 230 receiver, run a 4.3, 4.40, and can catch everything. They still wouldn't touch him because she kept banging on it. So, it can mess up those things. But if we don't talk about it and we don't share our stories, and that's what Dedicated is about. One thing I kind of want to bring us over here, and one of my questions is, Coach, when I got in this space, I was like you. I didn't believe in 707. I was a flag guy. Ben was smiling about that. But what I began to understand, and I think this is what triggered you, is the best emulation of the game is a 7-on-7 pass gun, because we all did it at our college level. You had a 7-on-7 pass period. One of the things that we wanted to do is pull the curtain back on leaders like yourself in the community that is really making change, instead of people thinking that everybody's out here to take a dollar or to get money off for kids. So I really appreciate you being personal. But you started way before me in this 7-on-7 business, and me and being both. Kind of discuss a little bit how you've seen the change, and how where these athletes, how this is helping these athletes, since they've pushed it down so that these athletes got to be so ready to play. And by year 2, they got to be able to get on the field, or they're going to be in the portal, because the college is going to tell them, hey, we need that spot. So how do you see 7-on-7 helping these young athletes, and how important is that development as you've seen the change over the past 10 years and where we are?
I'm a fond believer in this, that before I do something, I'm always saying, what's the rhyme or reason why I do it? What's the rhyme or reason why I'm going to do it? Right? Is it about money? Is it about fame? Is it about really developing these kids? What is it about that's going to trigger someone to get involved in 7-on-7? This was 10 years ago, right? So in the 10 years ago that I decided I wanted to do it, it was never about the dollar. Because if I'm not mistaken, me, Willie Clay, Ray Buchanan, Stacey Bailey, and Steve Mills, which is Davis Mills' father, who plays for the Texans, we were coming out of our pocket every week to figure out how to get a kid on a van to whatever. It is what it is. Those guys, and when I surrounded myself with guys who had no end game, which means they weren't doing this. Their palm wasn't up. Their palm was always down. What can I give? Because this guy we forced this guy into this situation, to be very honest. That's what they're thinking is, meaning you're going to do it because we don't really think that we're capable of doing it. But at the end of the day, our kids are seniors, so we don't want rising juniors at the time. We don't really think that people would think it's daddy ball per se at the end of the day. But you don't have a dog in the fight, so no one's going to look at you in that aspect. So when I jumped into this, it was solely one purpose only. Man, this is the best way I can develop my quarterbacks. I'm going to put 4 and 5 star guys around them, and we're going to get developed. They're going to get used to throwing those guys because those are the guys that are at the next level. I'm not running these janky offenses that you see in 7-on-7 where guys are running routes in the tackle box. Quarterbacks are taking the ball from the tee and just standing there. Right. Nah, wait a minute. Wait, hold on. That ain't developing that kid as a quarterback. So again, it goes back to that stuff I told you that any quarterback that has ever played for me, they can tell you this dude is a turd because I'm going to be harping on things like, where's your drop? I just gave you in this play call. It was a progression read for zone. One side is the zone. If you see man, this is the side you're working on. This is the concept. So now I'm teaching them next level football because now at the end of the day, at high school football, what it is today, and that is the RPOs. It's just, hey, I'm going to pull this. If this backer vacates the hole, then obviously I'm going to pull it and throw. If he stays there, then I'm going to give whatever the numbers in the box and the teaching that may be doing in high school. But it's not really concepts. It's not really progression read. I put my kids in a situation to try to understand how to read in a triangle shape, vertical inside out, vertical outside in, things of that nature, whatever. I felt that's what I was going into in terms of what 7-on-7 was about. But as the game tries to transition a little bit, now it becomes about, hey, I got to get that kid off of his team. Right. Where we are today. I got to get that kid off of his team. I'm going to fly this kid here. I'm going to pay for this. I'll pay for his parents or whatever it may be, yada, yada, and the third, all that kind of stuff like that. I'm not in business to doing that because I lose every year in that aspect. We may be as good as we are in terms of our teaching, our development. I may be really, really damn good at teaching kids how to play quarterback, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, man, somebody else has got a carrot that's a little bit bigger than yours. And that is whether it's money, whatever it may be. But I honestly tell kids all that you got to do what you think is best for you right now, because the time that we're in, whether it's NIL, whether it's getting next to somebody who can really help you flourish in terms of not football wise, but business wise. Because that's what this is a business now. Yes, this is a full-fledged business that people really don't have an understanding about what they got going on. And and me in the business aspect, thinking of that, I'm behind because I never approached it like that. And I never really got involved to try to tell a kid or to try to figure out those things. Now, will I transition into that? Possibly. And the reason why I say possibly is because I still believe that some kids that are doing this or trying to think about business, I still think that they're getting some wrong teaching. Now, what I'm trying to do is put myself next to some people who can educate me. I'm the biggest student of them all, the biggest student of them all. And the minute when I feel that I'm ready to unleash it to the world, a family or a kid, then I will do. But at this time being where it's turned into, it's about, man, is it really about the development of the kid? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Because some of the teams that are out there only get a kid on the weekend to play in the tournament. So did you really develop that kid? Are you really trying to teach this kid, certain things, stack and stem, create your own line? Are you really trying to tell a quarterback, hey man, push your drops? This is what I'm expecting you. No, because you know what's going on now? It's about the wins and losses, and it's about who I can get on my team that are 4 and 5 star guys. Now, don't get me wrong, man. Don't get me wrong. Up until last year, this year, we had every 4 and 5 star in Georgia on our team. We had them all, but they came through our program.
Correct.
There's a difference. There's a difference in versus going to get. Now, granted, we did get a couple of kids maybe going in their junior year that were elite, but at the end of the day, for the most part, they were in our program from day one. because we were probably the first program in Georgia to start a 15U program.
Yeah.
We were one of the teams to start a youth 14U program. Now everybody has them or whatever. So, and kudos to them, because at the end of the day, if someone's emulating what I'm doing and someone's like what I'm doing, that's man, I'm all for it. Because to be very honest, when we got into the 7-on-7 program after year one, I tried to model my program as much as I can with my own little tweak of what Cam Newton did with his program and of what Woodrow Grady did with Team Tampa, because I was the closest with those guys or whatever. And I used I used what they had already built to try to change it into here. And I mean, obviously we're doing something right. We got a Fortune 500 company behind us. Correct. I did something right. Correct. We didn't go strong arm. I just didn't go to Portland, Oregon and hold a gun to somebody and say, hey man, I need all them sneakers, cleats, sweatsuits, everything. No, I think we did it the right way in terms of that. But the game is changing. The game is evolving too, because now you have OT7.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And kudos to OT7, because they have created a platform to get kids to play on the NFL network, the elite of the elite. That tells you where 7-on-7 has gone. I mean, it's evolving. It is what it is. But the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do anything illegal or immoral to try to get a kid to play on a 7-on-7 team. I just believe that we will play with what we have. And last year, no one expected the things that we did last year. We had nobodies on our team in terms of the only big name kid that we had on our team at that time was Bo Walker, who's the running back committed to Georgia, who everybody said that kid can't play 7-on-7, but he took 7-on-7 by storm. And then now we have, obviously Sam Turner is a 4-star who's committed to Auburn. He blew up after playing with us, because now people start to see him play with the elite of the elite, play with, a really good quarterback, and really get some teaching. And not to say he's not getting that at Southwestern Cal, but I'm just saying to be able for people to see him on the 7-on-7 circuit. I think we went out of 8 tournaments, we won 6 of them. The 8th tournament, 7th tournament, which was obviously the YPL, which we had won for quite some time, couple of years. We lost in the semifinals or whatever. And then obviously at OT7, we didn't get a chance to go to nationals, but I thought we should have. That's just my own opinion or whatever. I thought we did pretty dang on good in the regionals at in Orlando. And we beat some really good teams on that stage. So I thought we did very well. And obviously our young quarterback, J.R. Harris, who's at Central Carrollton, just went bananas because nobody never knew who he was. And he played as a 9th grader at a high level. So that's where 7-on-7 is crazy. But we got to learn how, we got to keep up, because it's going to keep evolving. And it could potentially turn into AAU basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I will speak to that, and DR7 on that side of the house, we're pushing to AAU basketball. That's where we are. That's why you see us expand our schedule to, we're on every coast except for the East Coast. One of the things that we pride ourselves is to stay authentic to the game. In the way we do it, we try to take all the foolery out. And all the hype out. We won't, mano, let's go beat each other. So that's, we try to, that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. Stay a little old school in that. We know things are changing, but you got to stay a little bit old school because I think you lose some of the development when you get too flashy. What you start to see in the NFL, the run game is coming back. The power game is coming back. You're starting to see it in college. Everybody, they've been doing 7-on-7, but now they got to run the ball. So you saw Colorado go back to, let me get that big back in there and run the ball. So you got to always remember the foundational fundamentals. And I think that's in life, and that's how you become successful. You got to continue your fundamentals and your foundation. You can pretty up anytime you want, but you got to make sure you know your fundamentals. And I think that's what Hustle Inc. has done. You guys stay with your fundamentals. You might have a couple, you build them. You're building the 4 and 5 star. That's different than me going in and asking them to come, paying them to come. It's a whole different thing. The one thing we do have another group, another part of our company is called the platform Expose the Unexposed. You take an athlete that nobody knew about and you expose them. I see, I've been in this game since 2018. I've seen a lot of guys depend on going and taking 4 and 5 star athletes from Hustle, from Cam, or from Team Tampa to go play in this tournament, to go play in that tournament. And then you see that program ain't around the next 2 or 3 years because at the end of the day, they're not building relationships. They're not developing the athletes. They're not adding any value to the athletes except for playing in one weekend to go and then half of them don't win. I've seen teams and, heard about teams with 12 5-stars on the team and go to a tournament and can't win it. So, I'm really big on that. You got to come to our tournament. You've been in it. You got to play, but you got to coach. It's about coaching. And I think that's what guys got to understand. But I think, like you said, the sport is growing and it's going to be ebbs and flow and growth. I mean, so we'll take 10 steps forward and 5 steps back. So we figure out where is that balance to hit those next growth levels.
Right.
So, but I, what you've done in Georgia, I look at a lot of programs around the nation, talk with a lot of organizations. I think they should pick up the phone and call you and say, how have you been successful consistently? And I would say that behind your back, not just because you're on here, but because I think guys don't understand you're running a business at the end of the day. And I think you and I had a call the other day, when I invited you on and I was sharing with you have a business. You have a 26 person company with 26 staff members on your team. That's a small company. And that's what people don't understand. You can't do this thing bootleg. You can't do it. You have to go all in and commit. And when you're building a business, first couple of years, you make a loss. You take a loss. You guys have to earn your way to be able to get Adidas. So speak to how you kind of manage that. Maybe give some of these coaches a little insight when you put your staff together. Is there certain things you're looking for? Or how are you looking to bring people in? I know you said they've been with you from the beginning, but I know you didn't have all 26 in the beginning. It's been a process. If you can kind of share a little bit with that, maybe we can help some of these new guys coming into the game to understand how to stay dedicated and to build a foundation to be a Hustle Inc., be their own Hustle Inc. in the next 3-4 years.
Right. Well, it still goes back to this, and that is, and I'm going to always say this, it's just not only just in business, because technically it is a business decision when you hire a coach to be a volunteer in your program. It is also this. What's the rhyme or reason why you want to do this? I keep going back to that statement. And that is, and the reason why I asked that, because I really want to know why you want to be here. I really want to know what is it that you can bring. Now, granted, let's be honest here. I mean, we got a hell of a staff. I'm gonna give it to you straight with no chaser, and it starts from the 5 women. It starts from Yolanda Jackson, who's our operation, and she don't play the radio, and you know that too, Johnathan.
Yeah, I know
she's gonna be on her stuff. She is a branch of me. You know what I mean? Then you got people like Beth Teal, who her son, and speaking of that, Yolanda's son plays at Notre Dame. So he's been in our program. Then you've got Beth Teal, whose son plays at Miami, Ohio. He's a tight end. She runs our travel. So she handles everything from whether it's a flight, a bus, hotel, whatever it is, and also to feed kids. Then you got 2 women like Aaron and Danielle, Aaron Wilson and Danielle Miller, who are both doctors in what they do. We got them because of COVID, because we know what we were dealing with. So that's how we got them. Plus Aaron's son, Antoine Kamadi, whose daddy played in the league, his son plays for us. So that's her son. So he also has been in our program, and he's graduating. Obviously, this year he plays at Carrollton High School. And then we have now Bree Cipher. We have these 5 women in our program that kind of handles everything from a standpoint of outside of what a coach and the kids. I'm all for that, because I used to go home with headaches. Like, I can't do this by myself. So then now when we get to a point where we start with our coaches or whatever, obviously, from Willie Clay, Stacey Bailey, Ray Buchanan, to Steve Mills, they've been in our program since the day we started. They have never said this. They have said, what do you need, Tony? How can we keep this thing going? So when I kind of gave them a vision in terms of what I was trying to do with this, since they had anointed me to be this head coach, I was like, oh, Lord, so here's what we're going to do. So every year we kind of do these little, in October, coaches meeting to kind of figure out what we're going to do for the following year. As we started to expand and go into that 15U, and that 15U now we brought on Rance McCrary, who's a defense coordinator at Creekside High School. They've played, a lot of schools, whether it's in California, Texas, really good football program, knows what he's doing. Jake Thompson played at Morehouse College or whatever. He's a part of the GAC, which is Great Atlanta Christian High School, where Davis Mill played. He's in that program. So they now take on our 15U program. As we're going through this whole situation, now we're still trying to we're getting more kids. Well, one time we had 450 kids at a tryout. Well, we can only field one high school team and one 15U team. That's only 50 kids. What do we do with the rest? Well, now we're thinking, let's develop kids. Let's create another team.
Right.
Let's create another high school team and develop them. So now we get a guy like Nate Miner, played wide receiver at Georgia State. Very good, knowledgeable kid, young guy, knows his stuff. I wouldn't put any other kid around him if I didn't think that he can do it. If I am not available to coach that elite team, our travel team, he's the only person I want handling that, because he's another branch of me. He understands this game. And then now we have Clint Kent. Clint played, obviously, I think he played at James Madison, played in Canada or what have you. Really, really good. I mean, from our defensive side of the ball. So now we are winning because I just gave you a background of every coach in our program that can help develop our kids. Then we start getting guys like this, like a Justin Miller. Justin Miller played at Clemson, played with the Jets, 9-10 years in the league, who knows his stuff. A little off the wall, but that's what you need, because you need to bring kids back into reality, right, and things of that nature, whatever. But he knows his stuff. Coaches at Milton High School, they won state championship, things of that nature, whatever, and probably going to win it again this year, whatever. So now I'm putting these types of kids around these coaches. So now, again, when I say, what's the rhyme or reason why you want to do this? Ain't none of them said, I need this. I got to give something back. I'm going to pour something back into these kids because I want to help develop them. I want these kids to be successful. I want these kids to have these opportunities that we have. So now once we start building that, it's like, okay, now everybody's starting to come in. People want to come in. And at that time, I decided, I think it was 4 years ago. Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, I was helping out. I had been asked to help out with our team called RDU, a youth football program. They were 11 at the time, which they had won 3 consecutive national championships, had lost. They wanted me to come in and kind of give their offense validity. Let's teach these kids what they need to know as they transition into middle school. Very good program. Obviously, one of the quarterback that was on the team, CJ Cypher, who I obviously we brought down to Texas to play in that tournament. Very, very talented young man. I had already been working with him since he was 8. Oh, so wow. Now it goes to this. Okay, Tony, you've instilled this foundation in this young man. What does he really know up here? Mm-hmm. Does he really know how to play this game up here? So I went in and helped coach and gave the offense validity, protection, concepts, let him call to protection based on whatever that front was. It is what it is. I mean, he absolutely went bananas. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not saying this because he's come from our program. I don't think I've ever seen a youth football quarterback at the age of 11 film that is better than his.
Wow.
Johnathan, I'm going to send it to you. And you're going to see things like, you're going to see every possible throw there is, whether there's the quick game, meaning that hitch, reading, understanding, taking gifts, understanding play action, understanding inside, outside zone, sprint out, going through a progression. You're going to see him going that, finding a check down. You're going to see these things off platform throws. And I would tell you like this, If there is one out there, it's because I haven't seen it. But the ones that I have seen, I have not seen a kid's film that's better. So when I got him, so when I went and coached with them, that team was pretty doggone good. And I said to myself, I got to keep those kids. I got to get those kids in my program. They were 11. I created a 12U team just for that. And I was told not to do that through Yolanda. Tony, you're putting too much on me, Tony. I can't handle that part or whatever. So that's how we got to Bree, and she came in and helped Yolanda. She kind of managed that 12U team. And we took that team to Denver, Colorado. We took that team everywhere, South Carolina, you name it. And we had to create a coaching staff for that. I took it upon myself to just stay there and coach them because I'm the one who really brought them in. But then that first year, I sat there and I was like, who's going to coach him? Chad Clay is the kid that I got. He was at our practice one day just hanging around. And I said, Chad, what are you doing? He was like, man, coach, I'm just here. So what are you planning on doing with? He's like, I don't know. I said, good. You're our new defensive coordinator on our young team. He was like, for real, coach? You can coach. I know what you're doing. You got a college degree. You know what you're doing. You've played it at every level. Right. Your dad has played it. You know everything. Let's get to a point of now. If you say, and Chad will tell you this to this day, and I was emotionally taken when he said this. He said that I changed his life. I saved his life. He said he didn't know which way he was going, and when I opened the door for him to do that, he took it and ran with it because now we kind of put him around other men that were doing the right things, if that makes sense what I'm saying to you. And before you know it, it takes off. Now he's a defensive coordinator at a high school. He's now getting his master's, things of that nature. He will coach college football in the near future, but he's on that track. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know what track he was on when the day I saw him, when I offered him to come coach with us. I don't know, but apparently it was like, hey, coach, I'm telling you right now, you saved my life because I don't know what I was going to do. I don't know what was going on. And now you surround yourself with guys that are around you and you're like, God, this guy's successful. This guy's doing the right thing. This guy's doing this. He's doing that. And before you know it, it takes off. And then before you know it, now we got that program. Now we have opened the doors to bringing guys like Brian Miller, who coached at Parkview. Now he coaches at Pace Academy. I mean, to bring in guys like Deontay, who coaches at Stockbridge, who's the O-line coach. Granted, we don't have all of his line, but he knows football. He can coach offense. So now we've got all these people around our program. Now we're just taking off. We're just completely just taking off. And I can't be more proud of the guys in our program because they just got behind me and not knowing nothing and says, all right, man, what you need us to do? What are we going to do? What we doing this weekend? And before you know it, now we're going on year 11 and I think it's been pretty good. Could it be better? Of course. But from where we started and where we are today to have, obviously we talked about Adidas. They came in and thought that we were doing the right thing because they had watched us beforehand. They had invited us to this tournament and we took everybody by surprise. And then they came in before you know it, it just kind of took off. And of course, being the fact that, we've had some talented kids that are playing that Adidas game that's on NBC. I think that's also to a credit to where we are because they know that we're going to develop kids and possibly one day those kids will have an opportunity to be in that game or whatever. But we've been blessed, man. I think we might have. I haven't did the count yet, but I think we might have 50 plus kids in the league. We got hundreds of kids that's playing college football. We probably have hundreds of kids that have graduated, things of that nature, graduated college that are on doing the right things. That I did nothing. I just created a platform and I put guys around these kids to be successful and they're doing extremely well. I can't be more proud of these kids. So everything is not about me. It's always about the people that I've surrounded myself with. I ain't did nothing.
You mentioned how much 7-on-7 has changed, and you're coming up on over a decade as an organization. The landscape of college football, high school football, even has changed in that time and beyond. So I'm curious, and you've touched on it a little bit throughout this podcast episode, but I just want to kind of circle back around as we close out. What has kept you in the ranks and wanted to do this? You see coaches get out of the college game, you see coaches get out of the high school game. What has kept you dedicated and, wanting to continue Hustle Inc. and coaching and working with kids? Is it, seeing all these coaches or working alongside all these coaches? Is it seeing all these kids have success in college and beyond? What is it that keeps you dedicated and going?
Well, one is I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I believe that 1,000% that everybody in our organization, they enjoy it too, because we obviously stay in contact. We're in group chats, and bulk of our coaches coach high school football or some sort affiliated with a high school program or whatever it may be. We talk about it all the time, and before you know it, there's a no. Hey man, we have a coaches meeting. Hey man, when we starting this up, hey, I have a storage, and that's where all of our stuff is. Hey man, when we go into the storage, because it's about that gear. It ain't. And I'm appreciative to Adidas, but at the end of the day, I think nobody represents Adidas more than our program. I strongly believe that, because I breathe that into our coaches and things of that nature. And that is, hey, listen, man, yada, yada, and the third, you never know if somebody's going to be around, somebody's taking pictures. Obviously, social media is big. Everybody's got it or whatever. The stuff I give you, put it on. If you don't, you better go buy you some Adidas stuff or whatever it may be. So to say what has kept me around, that is that. Man, I enjoy teaching young men how to play this game, but the biggest enjoyment is seeing it where they enjoy doing it and they're kind of enjoying the fruits of their labor, if that makes sense what I'm saying to you. I think that's the biggest thing of what keeps us going. I love it. I to be very honest, I'm gonna tell you another thing. This is kind of hilarious, and that is, man, to see when we walk out on a field, we come into a stadium and everybody do this.
You gotta love that.
You see what I'm saying, Johnathan? That because granted, we do look very good. Adidas has done well. I am a fond believer. If we didn't give it to you, you're not wearing it. I don't care where you committed. I don't care what high school. I don't care what rap group you like. I don't care anything about that. If it's not an Adidas thing that we have given you, you can't wear it. You just can't wear it. You're not going to wear that. And if you decide that you think you're going to wear it, I'm the one who's really kind of probably going to embarrass you, take it off, or go home.
Yep.
So that's right there to answer your question. That kind of what really keeps us going. I just love the fact that the kids trust us, and they believe in us. They believe in us. So if they trust and believe in us, and we have the ability to keep this thing going, man, why not? But eventually, I do want to turn it over to some kids that have come through the program. All right, Chad, just to know, I am shaping and molding him to do that. Nate Minor, Jake Thompson. I'd want them to take it over. I just want to sit back and just enjoy it, just watch it from afar or whatever. But right now, as long as I got a little breath in me, as long as he keeps waking me up every day, I think that I'm going to continue to do this for quite some time. So,
yes, sir. Mump, any closing thoughts?
No, man. You talking Johnathan? Gotcha.
No, you go ahead, Coach. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, man. I appreciate the opportunity that obviously the man above created this platform for you guys, for me to be on it. I'm forever grateful that somebody thinks highly of what it is that I do. I'm really big on the kids in our program of telling kids, hey, you never know who's watching from afar. You never know who's watching from afar. So your character is the biggest thing that you can have, and you don't want to lose that to something that basically something stupid or something that you didn't think about. So I'm really big on that. I appreciate it. I told Johnathan a year ago, I think we've been playing now 2 years in your
Sure.
system. And I told him, I say, hey man, listen, I want to be able to get an opportunity for my kids to play on your circuit, because I think that the kids in our program deserve it, and I believe in what it is that you're doing and what you got going on. So I'm saying to you, man, if you got something, I'm 100% support it. I'm coming to nationals, and I hope we represented hustling to the best of our ability to make sure that they could say, man, DR7, well, good job done, or whatever. We went out there and we gave it whatever we have, and I think it was a success. But I want to say to him, I appreciate it. So anything he has, I'm definitely going to support it. Definitely.
Coach, I appreciate that. Only I can tell you what that means, because when I first got into 7-on-7 and we was looking at expanding Georgia, you was the very first name that came up. No disrespect to Cam or anybody, but the guys that I was meeting with, they said we got to get Tony on board. And so I just kind of stayed and watched and learned who Tony Ballard is. And so I respect that, So I want to tell you, thank you for your time this evening, man. It means a lot. Ben, I'm going to let you close us out here.
Absolutely. Hey, I just want to say we appreciate your time, Coach Tony Ballard. Thanks for joining us. It's been fun to watch. I always love the Atlanta tournaments, getting to see the organization represented. One of the finest in 7-on-7, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the circuit next year. Big thank you for your time. For Johnathan Mumphrey, I'm Ben Spicer, and for Coach Tony Ballard, thanks for tuning in here to the Dedicated Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Appreciate it.